Hi, so today I'm going to be reading chapter 15 of The Liberation of Gabriel King. We are on page 86. We're about halfway through the book, and chapter 15 is called Off a High Branch. If you remember yesterday when we read, I have to remind myself what we read. I'm reading my own book, two of my own books at home, so I'm getting myself confused. Oh, this is when they went to they went to Duke Evans' house, and the mom came out. They thought she was dead, but she came out and she was whacking him with the broom. Off a high branch. One thing I learned about liberating, sometimes it's not so easy to do when it's done. Or sometimes it's not too easy to decide when it's done. Now we were twice as scared of the Evans trailer as we had been before, but Frida said it had most definitely been our best try. So we crossed it off in black magic marker. Then we decided to take a breather. July 1st, Frida came over and brought an article from Life magazine. So that's a really popular magazine, even back then. It was all about the bicentennial. Remember, bi means two, cent means 100, so 200-year-old anniversary of America. So this was been taking place in 1976. So we propped it up against Jimmy's spider tank so we could see it at the same time. We lay in the grass on our stomachs reading it, and every now and then we turned the magazine around so Jimmy could see the pictures. We were looking at a 2-page spread of fireworks when Frida asked her question. Think we should go to the fireworks in Hallowell, she asked, studying the page. Where else would we go? We could go to the ones in Rockford. Why would we do that, I asked. Frida shrugged. We were quiet for a minute, but then she said, Terrence told me there wouldn't be any black people at the one in Hallowell. He said they'd all be going to Rockford. I wondered why it made a difference. Never seemed to bother Frida before. Terrence said white people aren't celebrating our independence. He says they're only celebrating the independence of white people. Huh, I thought we were celebrating everyone's independence. Mama and Pop and me are celebrating your independence, I said, and we're going to Hallowell. Frida shrugged like it was no big deal. I was just wondering, she said. Then she flipped the page around so Jimmy could see. You think Mr. Evans will be there? She said it real casual, but I could tell she'd been gearing up to ask me that. I hadn't thought about it none, but I suppose he would be. Yep, I said. Frida flipped off her sandals and wiped the sweat from her brow. No big deal, she said, tapping on Jimmy's tank. She's acting real cool, but I bet it's a big deal. Then she turned over her back and changed the subject. Want to go swimming in the catfish pond? Frida was already wearing her bathing suit top with her shorts because it was too hot to wear other clothes. Swimming sounded real good, except when it was always a clump of 6th graders at the catfish pond, and 2 of them were for sure to be Duke and Frankie. We could use the sprinkler, he said. Sprinklers are for babies. Frida looked at me like she knew exactly what I was thinking. It's time we did more liberating anyway. Frida stood up. I'll do something off my list if you come swimming. Now my ears perked up because I was always interested in what was on Frida's list, and it was pretty hot out. What's left on your list, I asked. The rope swing mostly? Mostly, Frida nodded. It's on my list too, I said, but that was the wrong thing to say because Frida got all excited. Go ask your mama if we can go, she said, standing up. Then she picked up Jimmy's tank and twirled him like a ballerina. This will make us brave for sure, she said. Maybe Frida was going to be brave, but I knew I was headed to the almost certain death. I said I'd do 5 other things off my list if we stayed home and used the sprinkler, but Frida was being a locomotive again. Just wait, she told me. After this, you'll feel so brave, you'll be the first in line for 5th grade. Fat chance of that. Besides, the 6th graders never let anyone use the rope swing. It was an unwritten rule, but apparently Frida didn't intend on following it. No one's going to tell me what I can or can't do, Frida said as she walked to the catfish pond. We'll just march right up to the tree and climb to the top before anyone can stop us. It's only fair. Ain't there, tree too? Frida stopped mid-sentence. We'd reached the pond, and there in a clump, just like I suspected, was a whole group of 6th graders. Smack in the middle of them were Duke Evans and Frankie Carmen. Soon as I saw them, my whole body tightened up like a dishcloth that was being wrung tight. Duke and Frankie were real close to us, standing on the opposite side of the cypress tree, chewing on candy cigarettes and talking to some girls. Any minute now, they'd turn around and see us. Let's go home, I whispered, but Frankie shook her head. No way, she said. We got just as much right to be here as them, and I want to go swimming, and they're not going to scare me. She started forward, but I pulled her back again. What if Duke wants to fight? You punched him in the nose, remember? Frida made a face. I can whoop Duke Evans and Frankie Carmen both, she said, and they know it. Now, come on. Frida was right about one thing. She could whoop Duke and Frankie both, and they probably wouldn't risk getting walloped in front of girls, but I bet they could think of something else to do. I stared at them, then up at the rope swing hanging off the high branch. I was so nervous I could feel the waterworks gearing up, but I choked them down and Frida grabbed my hand. You can do it, she whispered. The look in her eyes said she believed it even if I didn't. You sure, I asked? I'm sure, she told me. I swallowed hard and let her pull me toward the tree. My heart was pounding fast and my throat felt full like I couldn't breathe, but Frida held me tight and neither Duke nor Frankie turned around to notice us. Frida slipped off her sandals and shorts real silent, and I took off my t-shirt and sneakers real fast and left them next to Frida's stuff. Then we climbed up the tree quick and quiet as we could. The bark was rough against my toes, but it was easy to get my footing. I looked down at the ground below, and the higher we climbed, the more certain I was that there was no way I'd survive. But I couldn't turn around now. Frida and I sat down on the tree limb, facing each other, gathering our courage. For a minute, we were completely silent. I watched her face and listened to the sound of my heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. So the author used onomatopoeias. Then they saw us. Hey, Luke, Duke was pointing up, and my heart sunk. I looked at Frida, real panicky, but she kept her eyes locked on mine. You can do it, she said. I got faith. Down below, the rest of the kids were laughing and pointing too. It's Gabe and Frida up in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. Too scared to jump? You got to stand up first, you know. They were right under us, laughing and whistling and calling out. I closed my eyes because this was real trouble. You stuck? Want us to call your mommies? Better call Gabe's pop, I heard Duke say. He always calls his pop. My pop could take all three of them. That's when Frida stood up. She scowled something fierce. Gabe, she said, I'm going. For 1 minute, I thought she meant she was going home, like maybe we climbed down the tree and walk right past those hecklers. But I should have known better. Frida stood up and looked at me one last time. Then she leaned out, grabbed that rope, and swung right off the tree branch. Even though she was my best friend and I knew what she was going to do, for a minute, she was like someone I'd never met, someone incredible. Frida landed with a huge splash, and that was just about enough for me. I wanted to climb right down then, and I would have except for Duke. You'll never make it, he yelled. I stood up and stared down at the water. Frida waved, and I felt like I was 100 miles high. I was sure I would break my neck. The water below was brown and murky, and you couldn't tell how deep it was in the middle, maybe hundreds of feet. I imagined letting go of the rope and plunging in. Once I splashed down, I'd turn and turn and turn. What if I forgot which way was up and couldn't keep my breath? What's the matter, Shrimp? Duke yelled. Can't reach the rope? My mouth went dry. I hadn't even thought of that. I forced my eyes away from the water long enough to watch for the rope. It was still swinging from when Frida let go of it. And the next time it came toward me, I reached for it. I missed and my whole body leaned forward, back. I waved my arms like a propeller, and I heard laughter, but I got my balance. I watched for the rope again, and this time I leaned a little farther out. I caught it just like one of those trapeze guys in the circus and held it tight. I closed my eyes. You can tell we're at the climax of the story. I closed my eyes and felt my feet leave the tree branch. After that, I felt like my heart thumping and thumping at the roughness of the rope, burning my palms. The author's using a lot of things to paint a picture. Then I let go, and I was turning and turning in the water. For a minute, I didn't know which way was up, but then I was up, breathing in big gulps of sweet air. I splashed like crazy, but when I stopped and looked back to the shore, there were Duke and Frankie staring with their jaws to the ground, so they're in shock. I looked at Frida, and she was grinning real huge. I knew it, Frida said. I knew you could do it. And she was right. I had done it. Me and Frida bobbed and grinned in the water, and back on shore, Duke and Frankie waved our clothes and Frida's sandals in the air, then swung them in the trees. Hey, they yelled, come and get them. But we didn't care. They could take our shoes and shorts, but they couldn't take our courage. I like that sentence. They could take our shoes and shorts, but they couldn't take our courage. So that was chapter 15. Awesome. Bye.